everybody, it's Jillian. So yeah, I did originally say that I was not going to go on Facebook Live today to hang out with my hubby, but he's taking care of some errands that I really didn't want to take care of. So I figure I would just do a Facebook Live today and not do one tomorrow. So that way I have at least one day off where I'm not doing Facebook Live that I chose to not do just for my own personal sanity. So anyways, this whole thing with the coronavirus, with vaccines, with Jilly Juice, with doctors on the front lines, how do you know what is hype to have you invest in the latest and greatest biotechnological remedies and vaccines? And where did it originate from? The whole thing with patents, why they existed way long before the actual outbreak. And there's like so much information and so much speculation out there, it's impossible to know what the truth is. You get one perspective from one side of the spectrum, you get another perspective from another side of the spectrum, and it's relative to your belief system. Okay, you have 7 billion people. You have people making money off of hype and fear. We have sick people who are going to buy whatever's on the market to deal with their cancer, disease, and chronic illness. That's inevitable. I don't care who you are, whether you're a holistic person or you're an allopathic person, you're going to buy the latest and greatest thing on the market. And companies know this. That's why they do a lot of experiments out there to see, well, I mean, if you do get exposed to whatever virus in the environment, you're going to have to figure out what kind of state of execution is going to be manageable for the general population. So there's always going to be research. I mean, I just watched a Netflix movie called Pandemic, and they're talking about the anti-vaxxers, they're talking about global pandemics, they're talking about experiments and research in third world countries. They're able to do experiments to project potentially what could happen in the future. And then you can't rule out what goes on in like China when they are doing experiments with really pathogenic type of viruses. And so it's always an inevitability or a possibility that something will escape. Something, you know, whether it's intentional or whether it is accidental. I mean, you're dealing with humans. You don't know everyone's intentions. You don't know where everything originates from, but you know that viruses have been a part of the landscape for centuries, ever since the evolution of mankind, because viruses, adaptation, evolution all work hand in hand. And then you have animal exposure viruses that then also make it into the food supply, as well as in medicine, because people are around animals, they're eating animals. And when you have 1 billion people in China, when you have 1 billion people in China, they have to eat. And so they are, you know, they have major factory farms. They're eating exotic animals like koalas and bats and dogs and cats. And so inevitable, there's going to be a jump of bacteria and viruses from animals to humans. And then if people are not, if they're not prepared for that exposure, then yes, they're going to have some kind of symptoms to be able to adapt to that new environment, because that's all it is. No different than when you have some remote island in the middle of the Atlantic and that has never been exposed to different viruses or different bacteria or different animals. When you have people from Western society go into a place where they don't have exposure to all that, you're introducing a new environment, they're going to have to adapt. And if they're not getting some kind of transition process, yes, the fast accumulating antibodies could shut down a very weak body. So what's going on right now in China is exactly so. There are so many different people at different levels of decomposition, weaknesses, and strengths. And so when you have people who are in close quarters, who are then exposed to a virus, it's going to jump from person to person very, 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 very quickly. And so, so you're seeing that happen right now. But then, you know, those people there in China are really no different people over here. I mean, we have people in close quarters. Yes, you're seeing the whole UN Agenda 21, where they are doing this whole sustainable development, biodiversity type of thing, where they're encouraging people to live more in the city. They're encouraging them to live away from rural spread apart farms because they want to save biodiversity. Perfectly understandable. But with that said, you have to know how to protect yourself. And so the whole thing with the Jilly Juice, and when I was in that hospital for 12 hours waiting on somebody's diagnosis, I was exposed to all the viruses in that environment from people who are communicable. When you go to a hospital, you're going to be around people who are communicable. If you go to any public thoroughfare, you're going to be exposed to people who are communicable. You have to be able to adapt. If you are a doctor and you're around cancer, disease, and chronic illness all the time, 24/7, you have to be able to adapt. Whether or not you take a vaccine or you do Jilly Juice or you do both in, you know, in combination, you have to be able to be strong enough to adapt to the changing conditions. So the Jilly Juice world and biotech are going to have to conjoin forces. They're going to have to, and I kind of get that because I did check out Inovio, which is a pharmaceutical company that is trying to find a vaccine for this coronavirus. And yes, their stock prices have gone up, but it's going to happen inevitably because when people are getting afflicted and they're dying from a virus that's very, very strong and they have a weak body, you have to have some kind of transition process to then slow the amount of antibody accumulation. And so, but then you have to look at the side effects, what other systems in the body are being affected, and how many predispositions are in the population, you know, to then figure out how to make up this vaccine to be able to stabilize somebody, give them some sort of layer of protection. Yes, they're going to get adverse reactions relative to their predispositions, but at least they're not going to have such a fast accumulating antibody to then take them down. Okay, so anyways, so that's why I am now seeing the whole point of bringing together biotech and J-Juice, because when you have people who are not going to do J-Juice, they are that weak, you're going to have that transition, because either you stabilize somebody long enough to then be able to either buy them a day, buy them a week, buy them a month, or you give them enough time to then take in the J-Juice and then switch out their biochemistry for a stronger background, so that way they never have to worry about another virus that's going amok in their environment ever again. That's so in reality, when you are on J-Juice and you get exposed to a virus, you're not going to be, I mean, you'll be communicable relative to how far along you are, relative to your biochemistry, your predispositions, and your weaknesses, but at least you're going to now dilute the severity. So even when you're communicable with the vaccine, exposed to the virus, you're going to, yes, give it to your friends and family, but it's going to be a lesser version of it. Now, if you are that sick and you're that pathogenic, which it happens, and then you get the vaccine or the virus in the environment, and then you cough on people, okay, it's hard to say. And that's what's going, not hard to say, it's obvious. You look at what happened out there, you know, in China. You have a pure virus that's not been diluted down, okay, and it's getting exposed to people who are weak, and they're dying upon exposure. So you have to understand the reasoning behind the vaccine, and then you got to bring in J-Juice somewhere. Now, those of you that are doing J-Juice and you're strong enough, okay, and they are making it mandatory or they're making it voluntary, either way, you know, it's not going to hurt you. Either way, if you get exposed to the coronavirus and you're on J-Juice and you're doing it really loyally and you're doing it expeditiously and you're seeing the symptoms and all that stuff, and you get exposed to that virus, you're going to dilute the severity because your body is that strong. So even though you're exposed to the virus, it's not going to be so like so strong that it's going to take down people around you, because your body is going to then synchronize itself to take down the severity because your body is that strong. But when you have bodies that are that weak, exposed to a very pure virus, it's going to then pass that strength on to somebody else who may not have what it takes to survive it. So yeah, that's why you're seeing this this fear of death, which is warranted. Okay, so when you are communicable and you're not doing the JILLY and you're exposed to viruses, you're essentially giving up your data to people. People are taking your data. So that's why I said when you're on the JILLY juice and you are so strong, okay, like just like I was when I went to that hospital for 12 hours, okay, I was taking in people's germs and I was deriving benefit from it. Yes, I had a period of transition to where my body was adjusting. I did feel a little like, you know, out of sorts for one day because my body was going, it went through the incubation period. It was like 3 days incubation, being exposed to those viruses in that hospital. But I just blew my nose a few times. There was no congestion. There was no stuffed upness. At 3 o'clock in the morning, as well as early in the morning, like at 6 in the morning when I wake up, I just blow my nose and everything is cleared up. I blow my nose, everything's clear. I poop. And then, you know, when I blow my nose, I fart sometimes. You know why? Because those two, the alimentary canal should be clear. If you don't ever blow your nose and you don't like to poop a lot and you think that blowing your nose is horrible and you're not used to doing that, you are essentially building up all of this antigen in your body. The excess is causing then more degradation. Okay, and so why I was able to take all that data, and then I had the revelations about China and communism and whatever else, I was able to derive benefit from that data from somebody else. So when you're on the JILLY and you get exposed to a virus, whatever it is, whether coronavirus or something else, you'll be communicable, but you'll be passed along a weaker version of it for one, and then also two, you'll be giving people some other, you know, some other immunity to something else that's a lesser version of it. So essentially you're able to give off the best part of yourself, but then you're able to regenerate. Because remember, when you're communicable, you're releasing your life force. And that's how you have to look at it. Whenever you have symptoms, you are releasing your life force. But if you are not releasing excess and you're always able to work through your issues, but you are aging and degrading, you essentially have weaponized the world around you, and that's the aging process. Because I'm watching my husband right now and with how he deals with, you know, being exposed to all this stuff, and he never blows his nose. He yes, but he doesn't blow his nose. I'm like, how do you know? And he does it occasionally, but I blow my nose and release the mucus and the excess far more than he does, which should tell you something. Blowing your nose, mucus, and pooping, okay, is going to be the balancing, the way that you're going to calibrate your body correctly to adjust to the new environment. Okay, so those are in JILLY. If you do get exposed to viruses and you are communicable, it's going to be a lesser version, and you're giving somebody strength because you're giving antibodies. That's how natural immunity works. Okay, that's how natural immunity works. Is when you take on the brunt of it, you're taking the proverbial bullet, so to speak. When you get a vaccine or you get exposed to a virus and you don't have extreme symptoms, but you have mild ones. And the more healthy you are, the more mild those symptoms are going to be, to where they're almost non-existent. So let's say you're still in the process of JILLY, you do the JILLY, you're exposed to a virus, maybe you're down for 2 weeks with coughing and with blowing your nose, but 2 weeks is better than like a month, a year, or whatever. And you're doing the JILLY, and then you get exposed to another virus like the next 6 months, and now your symptom period, your communicable period is now a week. And let's say you do it again the next, 6 months, and now you've been exposed to viruses, new ones in the environment because they do mutate. Now your communicability is now maybe like a day or two, to where then it's just them blowing your nose every morning and releasing the excess. That's essentially what you're looking for as far as how you know the JILLY is working for you, is the fact that your symptoms are going to be relatively mild based upon the severity of the changes of the environment, whether it's a virus or whether it's the temperature in the area. Okay, I'm turn my heater down because it's hot. So there are indicators. There are indicators of how well the JILLY is working for you. But you have to go through the healing symptoms. Okay, you have to go through the healing symptoms. So you're going to see that, you're gonna see people in the conspiracy community, like in the chemtrails global. I've been watching chemtrails global skywatch. I joined 3 groups in biotech called Inovio Pharmaceuticals because they're working on a vaccine for this coronavirus. You're gonna see patterns. Now, I can't tell you if every 20 years they're gonna release a virus or a virus gets discovered, or if it's just the cycle of how it works when generations are breaking down and they are creating new viruses. So maybe the elderly and the immunocompromised and the young are creating these new viruses and they're being released, okay? Because you know that there is a generation, there's a segment of the population that is communicable, okay? When people are having walking pneumonia, they're communicable, where they have to go take antibiotics. They just put another virus, out there in the community. So you have to understand that there's going to be cycles of this based upon a dying generation. And so what we're working on is not to have a dying generation, is to make everybody 100% well, but there's going to be a transition process with it. And you have to be able to withstand that transition process. If not, then you will be one of those that will succumb. And so Joy Miller, you're going to be one of those that are going to be communicable because you don't understand how this works. Okay? And so I'm perfectly fine with deleting people who are like angry facing or laughing, because in a lot of ways it's like me playing God. You're not going to get benefiting the information. When you are critical of my bipartisan politics and the fact that I am understanding why biotech exists, why these agencies exist to begin with, you're going to be left up there playing either side and or going too far to the left or too far to the right, totally imbalanced, and you're going to join everyone you think that you hate, that you think is going to, is destroying you. You'll be one of the destroyers. Okay? So you have to understand balance. There's overregulation and underregulation. There's overabundance and underabundance. If you don't understand balance on a global level all the way down to the cellular level, you will inevitably take a side and then you'll contribute to what you hate the most. Okay? And so I have people that don't like the fact that I've joined the Republican side. I have people that think that that I've made a mistake in joining the vaccine community. Okay? No matter what, can you afford to take on that virus, that pure virus in your environment? Though you have friends that are going to do that wall of protection. And that's where the J juice is. Like, you have that wall of protection to dilute the severity, and then I'll get the freaking vaccine. If it becomes mandatory, I will get the vaccine and go walk around in a freaking hospital to take in the data to then allow my body to adjust, because I am that balancing force. So either, I take on that data to help me, but if I'm so strong, I'm probably not going to be communicable. So which means that the virus stops with me. But if I am relatively strong, but not fully strong, and I'm communicable a little bit, then the lesser version does get out. So it is still a balancing act, but we're trying to aim where you are asymptomatic, completely strong, and stopping the virus in its track. But you know what? There's going to be people that are going to be weak no matter what. They're going to succumb. Whether they take the vaccine, whether they get exposed to someone who got the vaccine or been exposed to the virus, there's going to be weak people no matter what. And you can't get through to them. They will find every way possible to have you stop your campaign of Jilly Juice or understanding balance. But no matter what, there's going to be people that are not going to be able to measure up. And you can't speak to them. You don't even waste your time with them. Because either they get it or they don't get it. I have people friend request me all the time, and I'll accept it. Not all the time, but I will accept if I'm interacting with somebody who they see what I'm saying, and it's a little controversial because I'm kind of speaking from, off the cuff, and I'm not censoring my words too much, but they're pretty chill and relaxed. They don't really react too much. They'll friend request me, and then they see what my stuff is about. They try to make jokes and promote celery or something else, and I'm like, dude, do not give medical advice or any kind of health advice on my page. Understand where Jilly Juice comes from. Understand this. You requested me. You're not going to be promoting your stuff on my page. And then they start niggling on my bipartisan politics, or they start, poking me on other things. And then they're off my page, because I'm not going to have my time wasted or diluted by interacting with someone that has no real intention to understand my information. They see I have some kind of words that are pretty wise, but they're not willing to take the extra step to understand balance, to understand where I'm coming from. And they thought I was just some person with another thought process that they could just go and mess around with. And that is not the point of Jilly Juice. I don't mess around with this shit. This shit's too serious. This is very serious. So understand this. You're going to see a pattern with these viruses. However they come out, you can speculate if it's intentional or if it's just because every generation is dying off, making things worse. Every single time you have a generation dying off or kids being born, they are mutating viruses. Do you realize that when you are aging and degrading, you are actually creating you're actually creating stronger viruses in the environment. You have to understand that. So you could think that's intentional being released by Bill Gates, and it's yeah, I mean, I can see where people think that, because when you are selling a vaccine or you're buying a patent so you can research it, you're thinking that someone's making money. And then people that thought that with me, they're like, oh yeah, you're preying on the weak, Jillian. You're selling a book. You're selling a protocol. You're preying on the weak. You're taking advantage. Well, I'm sorry, but I didn't create these weaknesses and these pandemics out there for me to create some kind of protocol that's going to help people in the long run once they understand it. Okay, so you cannot assume that because they created a patent back in 2015, that they were the ones that are creating it. Look at your parents. They are dying. Look at your friends that are reproducing. These kids are full of mucus. They are communicable. You stick them into a preschool or some kind of measles group, guess what? New mutations of viruses get created. The pandemics. People who are sick, people who are dying, people who are young and weak are strengthening these viruses. So if you really truly want to blame somebody, blame your parents who are very, very old and elderly and communicable. Blame the sick. Blame the weak, blame the people who are dealing with chronic conditions. They are making this stuff. They're creating the reason why we have this. So the J juice is going to be something that, no matter what, it's going to dilute the severity. But you have to understand what it means to do J juice. You have to take it seriously. You can't fuck around with J juice. It's not something you mess around with. You do it or you don't do it. So I'm able to vet somebody out, especially their intentions. And if they're all like into, I don't know, not taking me seriously, wanting to poke at me with questions that are really irrelevant to what I'm saying now, or they want to be critical or have a judgment on why it is I'm focusing on bipartisan politics, then I know exactly that they have no interest in understanding my point of view, and they have no reason why, and I'm not going to sell it to them. I'm not something that someone just kind of tosses around a little bit like another fad, another thing to like take in but not take seriously. That's not, no. And there are a lot of people out there in the world that Mother Nature never intended to actually survive. Okay? So you have to understand that too. And I understand that too. The ones that really want to live and survive, you're going to do the J juice. You're going to let us know how you're doing. You're going to join my group, or you're going to, really be supportive and why it is I'm understanding why biotech exists, why vaccines exist. Because if anything, you need a stay of execution. Vaccines are proven to save babies' lives, but some babies are not going to be strong enough no matter what. But you're seeing how this is working at the whole global reset. Yes, we're creating more life and more access to life in third world countries with modern medicine. But you have to understand too, yes, when you get exposed to viruses and vaccines on major positions, it's a losing scenario, no matter what. But at least give yourself half a chance to understand why the vaccines exist, why they may be necessary in certain instances, and that no matter what, you're going to roll the dice in your environment or from a vaccine. No matter what, you're going to roll the dice. When you are old, or when you are young, and when you are sick, you're always rolling the dice. So that's why J juice is so important, no matter which stage of life you're in. Whether you're the elderly, whether you're the immunocompromised in the middle of your life, whether you were young, born, or a toddler or whatever, J juice needs to be the landscape, needs to be the platform that you're working from. And then you will figure out how to adjust to the transitions of the changing environments and the climates and the new viruses that are being introduced. So, you know, take everything seriously. Some people are so privileged enough that they don't feel the need to fall into the fear around the viruses, and they're not even doing JILLYJUICE because they have enough protection here in the US for people who are willing to take the vaccine and take the bullet for them. And then if they are communicable, yes, you'll get some kind of adverse reaction or some kind of symptoms, but it's not going to destroy you. But you are still ultimately responsible for the way your body reacts to the environment. And that's the whole thing with JILLYJUICE is all about, is now you are wholly responsible for how you interact in this environment, how your body responds to society. And when they are pushing more people into the cities where you are in close quarters, now more than ever, you have to understand the power of JILLYJUICE and why it is you need to understand how to adapt to your environment, because it's happening. Okay, it's happening right now. And if you're not with it, with the JILLYJUICE, you're going to be caught up in the surge of the depopulation. All right, have a good day. Do JILLYJUICE. Bye.